Hi everyone, and welcome to our virtual cooking class. I'm Festival Foods Mealtime Mentor and registered dietitian Lauren, and I'm so excited to be joining you today from the Festival Foods Test Kitchen. Hope you're ready to get cooking. Today we are making a delicious dessert with Guinness, which is perfect for either a St. Patrick's Day celebration, obviously, but really this recipe is so good. These brownies are amazing that I'd suggest using Guinness every time you make brownies. You're going to want to make this year-round for sure. So hope you're ready to get cooking. Hopefully you have everything set up in your kitchen. There's a couple things that hopefully you've done and referenced the class materials ahead of time so that you're ready to go. One of those is having your oven preheated to 350, which we have going right now. But I do just want to shout out, if you do have questions throughout the class, you can reach out to us at askfestivaldietitians.com. Let's get started. Today we're making Guinness Brownies like I alluded to earlier. Your oven's hopefully preheating to 350. Something else that we wanted you to do ahead of time was to melt your chocolate with butter. You can either do this right over the stove. With that, you would be using a heatproof bowl. You'd set it over a simmering water, pan of simmering water, and help to melt it. You can also just melt it right in the microwave, whatever is easier. So that's something that we've done already. The other thing is that you're going to want your Guinness to be at room temperature. There's a couple other ingredients as well, like our butter for our frosting, we want it at room temperature. So hopefully you've referenced class materials and gotten those at room temperature as well. The eggs are another one that we need at room temperature. All right, so as long as you're prepared, you have your melted chocolate here, we're gonna get started then on our dry ingredients. This is still a little warm. You want this to cool for about 5 minutes so it's not too warm. So if you're just pulling yours out of the microwave or off the stove, make sure you let it sit for a couple minutes so it kind of cools down. So we're gonna get started then with our dry ingredients. So for our dry ingredients, we're gonna be adding flour, kosher salt, and our cocoa powder. So for our flour, we need 3/4 cup, and we're just using an all-purpose flour. You want to add this to a little bit smaller size bowl, like a medium size bowl. And I'm going to disclose right now, I'm more of a cook than a baker, so I really need to be paying attention here and following all the measurements. We're not cooking with our heart here. We are baking, which means we need to be precise. So I'm going to be referencing our recipe really closely to make sure that everything turns out perfectly. The next thing we're going to add is that cocoa powder. We need a 1/2 cup here, plus 1 tablespoon. Today we're using just Hershey's cocoa powder. I know they make a dark chocolate, a special dark cocoa powder, which would be really good as well. So we need a 1/2 cup of the cocoa powder. So I'm going to add 2 of these because I've got a 1/4 measuring cup here. And then we need to add about 1 tablespoon as well. Of this, and then our kosher. So 1 tablespoon extra for the cocoa powder. And then we have our kosher salt, which we need a 1/4 teaspoon of. Kosher salt is essentially just coarse salt. I use it a lot just cooking in general. So a 1/4 teaspoon of that. And then we can just mix these two combine. And we'll be adding this to our chocolate here shortly. And I don't know about you, but whenever I bake, I make a mess. Everything, just no bowls are ever big enough, and we'll get to that when we get to our frosting and combining everything in this bowl, but just be prepared to possibly deep clean your kitchen after making this recipe. Okay, so we have our dry ingredients. The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna come back over to our chocolate over here, and we are going to be adding some sugar. So we're just going to use white granulated sugar, 3/4 cup. So I have a 1/4 measuring cup here. I'm going to add this right to our chocolate. And then we're going to mix that up to combine. It's going to look pretty grainy. That's okay. That's what we're going for. We just want to make sure it's completely combined before we add our eggs. Are going to be our next wet ingredient. Adding here to our big bowl with chocolate. I should have mentioned too that we're using semi-sweet chocolate today. 2 of those 4-ounce baking bars you can buy. Again, if you prefer a dark chocolate, go for it. I think that'd be absolutely delicious. These brownies are very chocolatey, but so, so good. Okay, that looks good. So it's fully combined. It looks grainy. Next, we're going to stir in the eggs one at a time. So again, these eggs are room temp. So I pulled these out prior to the class. So we're adding 3 eggs, one at a time. And I'm gonna just use here, wipe my hands off a little bit. Combine each egg. So I mentioned that these brownies are really chocolatey. Another part is these brownies are very cakey, but they're dense. They're very, very good. We all love them when we tested this recipe, but they're very rich. So we're using an 8x8 baking pan today, and it'll go far, believe me. All right, we're gonna add in our next egg. Maybe you have some helpers in your kitchen today that can help you do the mixing with all these different steps. I will say too, cooking can be therapeutic, but definitely baking when you are following a very strict recipe. There's lots of combining, lots of stirring. It can be a very nice, quiet activity. Keep stirring that up. One more egg here. Looks good. When I think about desserts and kind of ranking like favorite desserts, brownies are definitely up there for me. I feel like if you're a big chocolate lover, brownies typically make like your top 3. I'd say that's probably where they're at for me. These ones specifically though. There's just something about frosted brownies that just brings them to a whole new level. All right, that's looking pretty good. I still see a little bit of egg in there. We want to make sure it's combined really well. Patience, patience. Keep stirring. All right, that looks pretty good. Okay, next we're gonna add in vanilla extract. We do need some in the frosting, but we need some here in our batter as well. So the amount that we need in our batter is 1 teaspoon, which is also what we end up needing in our frosting as well. So we're gonna add this to our wet ingredients here, 1 teaspoon. Yum. Save that for our frosting then. Move it over here. Try to stay a little organized here. And then our next step is we're gonna go back to our dry ingredients that we combined earlier with our cocoa powder, our flour, and our kosher salt. We're gonna slowly add those to our wet chocolatey mix here. Okay, that looks good. So when we're adding this, I'm gonna use my 1/4 cup here, but we're gonna wanna add slowly. So you wanna just add in a little bit at a time. And the key here is just to mix until the dry ingredients are incorporated into the wet, which is why it's just easier to manage if you don't add it all in at once. It will get combined, it will get pretty thick. But again, baking is patience. We gotta follow the steps. And then we will know that it's gonna all work out perfectly. All right, that looks good. I'm gonna add in a little bit more. So I mentioned that we are working today with Guinness. Obviously, that's a key ingredient in these recipes, and something that's great about adding beer, which we will be adding after we get everything combined here, is that particularly Guinness, like a stout beer, a dark beer, really brings out and accentuates the chocolatey flavor. Guinness has some notes of caramel and espresso, like coffee, in the beer, and that really helps bring out the chocolatey flavor of these brownies. So I'm gonna go ahead, add a little bit more, and at this time, we're lucky enough to have a special guest that's going to be contributing to this class today. Jimmy Callahan, who is the Guinness Brewery Ambassador, is going to jump on and share some awesome pairing tips with Guinness. So we're going to kick it right over to Jimmy.
Hey there everybody, Jimmy Callahan, Guinness Brewery Ambassador for the Midwest. And I'm so happy to be back here with Festival Foods, St. Patrick's Day season. We've got Guinness Brownies in the oven, hopefully. This is going to be awesome. They pair so well with Guinness because of Guinness's chocolate, coffee, toffee notes. It is such a great beer to pair with desserts, especially chocolate desserts. So I hope you enjoy them. I hope you're having a great, healthy, and happy St. Patrick's Day. And a little pro tip, if you sprinkle some sea salt over the top of that frosting after you frosted it, you'll thank me later. Trust me. See ya.
Thank you, Jimmy, for sharing all that great beer knowledge with us. Super, super interesting. And here we are. We are still mixing everything. It's getting really thick. I have just the last amount of dry ingredients to add to our wet ingredients. And then I promise we are adding some liquid. We're adding that great Guinness to this mixture, to our batter. But hopefully, again, you've had maybe some helpers in your kitchen that could take over for you. Give your arm a little break while mixing all this together. But this just shows these are going to be, again, very dense brownies. Very chocolatey. Very delicious. So you just want to make sure everything is just incorporated. Don't want to overmix it, but definitely don't want any dry ingredients showing up here. Okay, so this looks good. So we're going to add in our Guinness. Like I said, we want it to be room temperature. We are going to add in 3/4 cup. I think I have, here's my 1/4 cup here. I'm going to give it a quick little rinse and then we can use it. 3/4 cup plus 2 tablespoons. And there's going to be a little bit of foam. That's okay. Two more tablespoons. You can get Guinness in the bottle, in the can, either one works. And now we're going to mix this together ever so carefully. Just keep working at it nice and slow. It'll absorb. Such a fun addition to brownies is using a nice dark stout. And what I love about Guinness is that it's not overly sweet either. I'm a big dark beer fan, and there are, so many that are a little more on the sweeter side depending on what else is in the stout. But Guinness is just a really good, solid stout. Subtle hints of coffee and caramel, but nothing overly overpowering or overly sweet. So you just want to be patient, keep mixing this. And then we're going to be adding in more chocolate. we're going to be adding in some chocolate chips. And then we will be getting it in our pan, adding it, putting it in the oven, and we can get going on our frosting. So we have this debate between the Mealtime Mentors of, like, do you like center pieces of brownies or do you prefer the edges? So curious if you have a strong opinion on one or the other. I personally prefer the middle pieces. I do not like the edges. My husband likes the edges. If you can find somebody who likes the opposite of you, consider yourself lucky. That's awesome. But we discovered with this recipe, because they're so cakey and dense, that they don't really get crispy. There really aren't edges to these brownies. So for you edge people, I'm sorry about that. But I think you're still gonna love them. All right, this looks pretty good. We got that beer all incorporated here. So we're gonna add in our chocolate chips. So we're just using semi-sweet chocolate chips, 3/4 cup. If you want to use less, use less. If you want to skip them, skip them. You have a little control over this part. Great. So you just want to incorporate these here. And I didn't talk about this at the beginning of class, but something that hopefully you already did was prepare your baking pan. So we're using an 8x8" baking pan today. What we did is we're using parchment paper, which is just a really great, easy way to cut the brownies, to keep your pan clean. It's just really a good tip for baking. So we have our parchment paper here. I've already sprayed the inside of our baking pan. Put the parchment paper then in, and then sprayed that. So from here, I'm gonna go ahead and pour our brownie batter in. Make sure you guys can at least try to see this here while I get the majority of it in here. Yum, look at that. I can smell the beer, and it smells amazing. Okay, I'm gonna reposition here so I can use my right hand to get all this great batter out. That looks pretty good. Get out as much as we can here into our pan. All right. Move this over. And then you're just going to want to go ahead and smooth it all out. And then we're going to be putting this in the oven. Again, it's at 350. About 25 minutes is when you want to do your first check and see if that toothpick comes out clean. This. So I'm going to do that now, and then we can get going on our frosting. And I should note that the rack in there is in the centers where you want that for baking. All right, get a little organized here. And we will get going on our frosting. I am also gonna pull over, we have a done pan of brownies so that I can frost them up and show you the end product right away. Since when you do pull those out of the oven after about 25 minutes, you're gonna want to make sure that they are nice and cool before you frost. So for our frosting today, it's really simple. We have a 1/2 cup of butter. You want this at room temperature. And this is what we're gonna start with with our hand mixer. If you have a stand mixer, perfect. You can put that right in the bowl. But yes, we have our 1/2 cup of butter here that's at room temperature, so it should be a little more on the softer side. And we're gonna completely blend this all up until it's nice and creamed. So this might take just a little bit. All right, so that looks good. Next, we're gonna add in our powdered sugar. So 2.5 cups of that. It's gonna go into our frosting. So very typical like buttercream type frosting here. 2.5 cups. I have a 1/2 cup measuring spoon here, so I'm gonna measure out 2.5. And this can all go in. More to the bottom of our bag here. All right. And then we have our vanilla extract and our beer that still needs to get in here. But let me just check here. I think we're just going to blend these together first. Yes. And then we will add in the other two. All right, so you might be looking at this like, okay, well that doesn't look like frosting. We have a couple wet ingredients to add. So we're gonna add in our vanilla extract and then 2 tablespoons of Guinness. So I can use that same bottle here. All right. Back to our mixer. All right, so as you can see, it got really nice and thick, and now it looks like good frosting. So I'm gonna clear a little bit of this out of here so that you can see okay. But because our brownies are cool, we can go ahead and frost them. And this makes quite a bit of frosting. You get a really nice thick layer on these brownies, which is kind of what we're going for. So go ahead and use it all up, spread it on. These brownies, I mean, I don't think you're gonna have a problem finishing them, but if you do want to store them, you can put them in the refrigerator for 5 days, or you can go ahead and freeze them as well. Maybe you're making them ahead of time for a St. Patrick's Day gathering, or you do just want to save some for another time. So what I love about this recipe is that we have some Guinness in the brownies, obviously, but you can really taste it as well in the frosting. It's subtle, so it's definitely not a bad thing, but you can taste it, which I love. Make sure this is all incorporated here. And how good does that look? Especially when you cut a piece out, you're gonna see just that nice layer of frosting, and wow, it's so, so good. Perfect. And those are our brownies. So thank you so much again for joining our class today. Hope you had fun and learned a few tips and tricks along the way. Again, if you have any questions or comments while taking this class, please feel free to reach out to us at askfesseldietitians.com. If you're interested in taking upcoming classes, virtual cooking classes, and getting the materials you need for those classes, you can find all that information at festfoods.com/classes. Also, be sure to follow Fest Foods on Facebook and Instagram to be the first to hear about upcoming virtual cooking classes. And lastly, if you're looking for more great, whether that be dessert recipes or just any recipes from the Mealtime Mentors, you can find those all at festfoods.com/meals. Thanks again for joining today, and we'll see you next time. Bye.